Hello, everyone. Welcome back if you have been with us before today, but also welcome if this is your first session at the CxC Festival. My name is Martin Brynskov. I'm chair of OASC, and I have the pleasure to be moderating this session, which is about the MIMs evolution. So MIMs, they are minimal interoperability mechanisms. It's the pivotal concept around OASC. It's not the only thing that OASC does, but it's a very concrete output of actually being specific towards the market, towards regulators, towards each other on what would be helpful to agree on, to have a common ground. So you can consider the MIMs as a way of being explicit towards big tech, towards local government when you put things in procurement, towards your national government, and towards everyone else, in fact. So we understand how this increasingly connected world fits together. I'm joined today here by a great lineup of people. So we really look forward to having your views and visions here. It is a heavily gender skewed lineup, and for that I apologize. It's actually because we had well, some changes also a bit last minute. So trust us, we have been doing everything we could to have a balanced presentation here and a balanced representation, which I hope you will recognize throughout the CxC Festival program. So maybe we can see, I'll just stop sharing the screen. Maybe we can just say hi to everyone here. If you turn on your cameras, we should have you in attendance. Hello, hello. I see, well, almost all of you. And a warm welcome to you as well. Well, again, I think what you will hello, Mika. What you will get from this session is, of course, a little bit of a status, but I would also encourage all of you to tell, each other and the audience, why are you here? Why is it important to have a common ground? Why can't we just, wait and let the market solve it? We have heard in the earlier sessions today, and certainly we will later today and tomorrow, we will hear much more about the concrete, company offerings. So the next session here is like the get practical with. So if you want to go and hear a particular vendor or a particular view on how is this going to be implemented, if we were to call you and do it, or to join us there, how would that work? So I would also really hope that you can, share a little bit of reflection. Why are you even taking, parts of your busy time to be with us here to you today? And of course, can I say that, are just insanely happy that you're here and that you have. So without further ado, I would invite you, Olavi, to bring up your presentation. We will do it in a little bit of 2 blocks. So we will have the first 4 presentations, then a small loop, and then we will continue, and then we will loop around again. And we will try to stay punctual here, but we have many sessions, so perhaps if we don't cover all aspects here, well, we can surely take them either to the individual company presentations or to some of the other sessions tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Or if you're physically here in Brussels, well, you can also discuss over dinner. So thank you very much. And Olavi, the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself and share your views. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin, and definitely delighted to be here today, and very delighted to have been having the opportunity to be in this movement from the very early stages, and to some extent before seeing some of those sources and streams and communities of activity which have led to us being here today. And I'd like to say that I think that the very special strength of this movement is that it is demand driven. It is driven in the end by the cities and communities and regions, of course, together with their ecosystems. But still, this is really different from the situation like 10 years ago, because then, normally the cities and communities would not have, well, the smaller ones, not necessarily even much of a ICT organization, understandably, or a CIO or a CTO, or not to mention being able to be present at the standards organizations. So this movement has become the interpreter for the cities and communities, and increasingly regions, together then with their ecosystems, to have a voice in this in these tables, which alone they could not do. So together you are strong, and therefore the MIMs are providing the technical common ground, and for these cities, communities, and ecosystems. And I must say, without well, being actually proud of it, that some EU projects have been very important and valuable on the way. Let's just mention a few: CitySDK, Organicity, Espresso, Synchronicity, quite a few others. So that, of course, means that the local level and then the EU level and even global have been able to come together. So let me start from where my colleague Andrea left off in her previous presentations in the earlier sessions. Digital Europe program. There again, the MIMs are in there, and that changes quite a lot also from the MIMs point of view of being visible to more and more people, those who have been sitting on the fence, so to say, as to, or on the hedge, as to, well, is this something that's actually going to happen even beyond OASC and even beyond living in EU? Well, they can now see that clearly these are mentioned several times in the Digital Europe program, work program, for example. So it's happening. And that, of course, even makes the MIMS work more valuable and more impactful, that it is also being clearly referred to. These are now the ones, the topics which are in our unit in DG Connect for technologies for smart communities. But then there are, of course, many other topics in the work program where these are valuable and relevant. And of course, that will also bring some more valuable funding into the picture. Now, in many cases, you have been working based on your passion, based on your involvement in cities, in communities, regions, companies who are supporting living in EU, who are supporting the MIMS. But now there will also be definite EU funding more so. So we have the MIMS in the reference architecture, and it's important to see that they have their specific places in the reference architecture, and these are based, for example, MIM1 is based on important work which has been done together by OASC and by, let's say, the supply side, for example, FIWARE and others. And that goes also for MIM2. You know, we have seen in the earlier sessions data models initiatives which are going forward again together. And you can find the other core MIMs which are already being worked on or being already even used in procurement, as we have heard in the earlier sessions. So you can relate those to the reference architecture. You can see the MIMS Plus version 4. We can also be grateful for the plus in the MIMS Plus, because that is really what connects the MIMS also to the wider European policy landscape. For example, if we come together with our DG Digit colleagues, we work together on the European Interoperability Framework for Smart Cities and Communities. Now, also in their publication, for example, they have MIMS references there, and especially from the technical and semantic interoperability sides. But then, as it was said in the previous session, the other levels of organizational, legal, cultural, they are also very important. So we are working together with DG Digit and others in building the connection also from this point of view to the European policy scene, together building an interoperable Europe, as DG Digit would very much together with us say. And so we are glad to see that the MIMs are there in European policy in more and more places. Inspire directive with working together with our colleagues from JRC. We're on the MIMS 7 on Geospatial, especially CEF building blocks, of course, having already the context broker there based on MIM 1 work. So this is all great, and it gives a better and better leverage to have an impact. Then going from there, of course, then the question becomes, as was also discussed already from the local digital twins point of view, what is it that you need to, let's say, define as minimal interoperability, and what is the order in which you do that? Some are already going into procurement, as we saw in Rotterdam, as we saw in Slovenia, and there are other cases where MIMs are already used, some of them in procurement. So then, now going forward with Living in EU technical subgroup and others, well, the decision is there. What is it that should be defined as minimal? What is it that should be even standardized? We have worked very much with ETSI for MIM 1, for example, and then globally, for example, synchronicity-based ITUT recommendation was made. We know that there is a MIMS-based deliverable being done in the context of the U for SSC, United for Smart Cities and Communities, sorry, United for Smart and Sustainable Cities and Communities. So what is it that should be quickly already be put forward, even on the global stage, with the European, strong European voice as well, but still on the European stage? And where is it that we need to look at this whole picture here and wider as to what is the comprehensive view? For example, when we take the local digital twins point of view, what is it that then needs to be looked at in a more careful and long distance view? And if we take the local digital twins, well, it's a complex picture from also the standards point of view. I will not go into the detail here, but these are some of the scoping issues there as to what is it that should be standardized, harmonized, or not. That is your decision as community, and we support you. We work together with you. Now, I want to very much emphasize also the Living in EU movement, because, well, that is the European way of digital transformation in cities and communities. And that is where together we are strong. We're working together for the MIMS Plus on the technical subgroup, but there are also already the other working groups which are important as well, on the legal and ethics, on the financial, on the measurement and monitoring, and on the education and capacity building. Now, all of these are important. So join if you have not yet joined. If you are a public administration, sign the declaration. If you are something else, sign as supporter if you have not yet done so. Then, you know, together we are even stronger. We have many, events, many important events. Here's just one which Marcus Nogueira mentioned already in the previous session. Put it in your calendar. That is one of the upcoming events which I consider very important from this point of view. So finally, join the movement and use the MIMS. Joining the movement is important both for contributing to the MIMS and the MIMS Plus globally and Europe-wide, and using them in practice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olavi, for this concise overview. And yes, it's good to see actually that the evolution is there. This is in fact the 9th annual event we have. So we didn't talk about MIMS from the beginning, but we talked about, well, something in common. So now it's becoming, you know, almost productized at some point. So yes, certainly there's evolution. And Michael will now give us an overview of where we are regarding, well, the MIMS overall, and what is already, you know, in the oven, so to say, from the working groups. You mentioned, Olavi, the European level. Well, MIMS are global for everyone in the world. And then the different global regions, even some cities have taken it on themselves to sort of unfold them locally on a national or a global region basis, as we've seen in Europe, as we've seen in Japan, and you know, a few other places, even on the local level. So thank you so much, Olavi. And Michael, the floor is yours. Perhaps you could give a short introduction to yourself and give us the upshot of the whole thing. Actually, now I'm not seeing the slide. There's a little bit.
They come and go a bit. I'll see how it goes. Okay.
I can share. Yeah.
Is that okay? Yeah. So I have the privilege of being the MIMS ambassador within Open and Agile Smart Cities, and it's my role to be a link really between people who need to use the MIMS, want to use the MIMS, and between them as cities, standards organizations, and OASC, to make sure that what we deliver is something that works. And it's been great to hear Olavi providing that wider context. And I'm just trying to be a bit more focused here and seeing where we are at and what are the kind of some of the questions that we need to be solving over the next few months to make sure the MIMS are in a good order. And this is where those of you who are on the panel, you know, we need your ideas and we need the ideas of everybody to make sure that we can do a great job. So just to go on with, let me just get my screen. Just to go quickly through a reminder of what the MIMS are. Minimal interoperability mechanisms are about minimal interoperability, and it's the minimal sufficient degree needed to meet a certain requirement for data sharing, use and reuse. And why do we talk about minimal? And that's because that the kind of issues that cities are trying to deal with as they want to use data and smart technology to help benefit their citizens, it's very, very complicated. And there are many, many very detailed standards that, you know, really we ought to be complying with if we want to do a perfect job. And if we wanted to do that, we'd only have the best resource cities that would be able to really use data effectively. So what we're trying to do here is to think about the ordinary cities, the vast majority of cities that there are not only in Europe, but around the world, that are keen to see how they could use technology to help work better to help make their cities better for the citizen, and want to get a good start, a good solid start in what they're doing. And what we are looking at here is how we can provide good enough tools to help those cities. In other words, we want to ensure good enough integration of systems and support a viable market because of that. So it's the kind of 80-20 rule. Can we get 80% of the benefit from 20% of the effort as a start? This is not to say the MIMs are enough, but it's to give the MIMs as a way of getting going and really seeing some valuable results pretty quickly. So good enough integration of systems, no unnecessary complexity or time to implement. We want this to be something that a city can fairly quickly put in place so they can start to see benefit quickly, and also that won't cost a lot of time and effort to do it. However, at the same time, these mechanisms need to be clearly defined sufficiently so that cities and product providers, service providers can be confident that what they're offering complies with the MIMs, and so that it can be quite clear what needs to be done in order to make sure that what you're doing is MIMS compliant. So this is what we talk about when we talk about minimal interoperability mechanisms. And within OASC, we've listed 10 that we're working on. Context information management, shared data models, and ecosystem transaction management are the first 3, and they're out there. And then we've got personal data management, fair artificial intelligence, security management, geospatial information management, ecosystem indicator management, data analytics management, and resource impact assessment as the full list that we're in the process of putting into place. Now, what all of these 10 different MIMs are attempting to address is these 2 questions. What are the sets of minimum capabilities that are needed for a city or community to set up an effective data sharing ecosystem? Because we know that there's a whole range of things, and the list I've just gone through remind us about that. We need to think about, you know, how to get the data right, how to get security, privacy, geospatial, a lot of different issues that need to be dealt with at the same time. So what are the minimum sets of capabilities that we need? And then what are the minimum specifications to deliver each of those capabilities that will allow 3 things that will ensure that those capabilities are delivered? So we need to make sure that while we want to make these MIMs minimal, that they're not so minimal that you can't achieve anything. We need to make sure that they deliver. And then the 2 things which are the complicated thing to keep in balance, we need to make sure that the MIMs will allow sufficient flexibility to allow innovation. We don't want them to be so rigid that we're going to be stuck, cities are going to be stuck with this is how it is, this is how it's going to be, and there won't be any progress. We want to encourage innovation, we want to encourage people to try out new things. So there needs to be some flexibility, but at the same time, we need to make sure that the MIMs will ensure that all the range of possible compliance solutions will be interoperable with each other, or at least that there's a level of interoperability that we can put in place. Because we are not wanting lots of cities to each do their own thing. What we're wanting to do is, while encouraging flexibility and innovation, to make sure that we're building solid interoperability that will deliver a really effective marketplace and will allow cities to move ahead together and to learn together from each other. Now, there may be other MIMs later. We've identified 10. We're not wanting a lot. There may be 12 in the end or something like that. But we need to make sure that if there's any gaps in what we've at the moment agreed, that we put them in place. And we want to make sure that we think about them as quickly as possible so that we can identify all the linkages that we need to make between the different MIMs. Where we're at the moment, as you know, MIMs 1, 2, and 3 are already being specified by cities in procurements. And as always, they need to continually be under review. There's a few things that could be done probably to improve them, and that work is continuing. But at the same time, we've got 3 working groups that are now delivering MIMS 4, 5, and 7, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, with the aim of getting something out there in the next 3 or 4 months that can be tested by cities, that can be implemented, that we can learn how well they work, what changes need to be made, so that then within a year we can get these things launched properly to be implemented widely around the globe. So that's the plan, and the idea is we want to get this kind of system in place where we launch those 3 MIMs, and then we get another 3 MIMs started, and so that as quickly as possible we can get the full set of MIMs available to be used by cities. Now, this is what I want to spend a little bit of time on. We're not inventing these things, and there are 3 interesting starting places, if you like, or where areas of how we're working with each of the MIMs, which it's important to understand, because we're not following exactly the same roadmap for each. So in some cases, there are existing authoritative standards. And what we're not wanting to do is to invent new ones. What we're wanting to do is to find out, rather than telling cities you've got to put in place all of these long, complicated sets of standards at the same time, we're wanting to find out what are the key standards among the standards that are out there that need to be implemented first, and within those, what are the key requirements that they need to prioritize. So that's where there's existing authoritative standards. We're wanting to give cities a good start. Where there are several standards initiatives that cover the same ground, in other words, what you do sometimes find is conflicting standards or overlapping standards, and it can be quite confusing. So what we're trying to do there is to find out where there's a lowest common denominator, or the pivotal points of interoperability, or some kind of thing like that. But if there are several competing initiatives out there that many cities are following one or the other route, how can we make sure that there's a good level of interoperability between these different ones, so that we can help, if you like, nudge cities into helping them to be more and more consistent in the way that they're working? So that's the second way we're working. And the third is where not so much there's any standards already out there, but where there's a policy initiative or a directive that it's quite clear that something needs to be done in that area. We're looking at what practical tools that we can develop, what technical specifications we can put together that will underpin and support those procurement or policy directives or initiatives. So this is the interesting thing. The 3 MIMs that we're working at the moment demonstrate each of those 3 different ways of working. So MIM 7 is about geospatial, and there are many, 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 many very important geospatial standards that are not only developed already, but are being under development, under review. It's great that they're there, but it's a very complicated situation. So what we're doing with MIM 7 is we're recognizing that MIM 1, which is about context information management in local data ecosystems, it is obviously a foundational MIM. And what that does is it shows how you can bring together context information around data, and particularly for cities, location is really important. And so that's why, unsurprisingly, NGS-ILD does handle basic geospatial data very well. Now, the question is, as we've been talking earlier today, as cities start to put in place, the foundations for digital twins, then it's likely that they're going to need more complex, more sophisticated ways to handle geospatial data. And this is what MIM 7 is meant to do. It's meant to identify the other important geospatial characteristics or context of data that are needed to enable cities to start to develop effective local digital twins and other such sophisticated use of data, and identify what the key ones are to help cities start to move into that new area. And obviously in doing that, we need to make sure we integrate well with MIMS 1 and 2. So that's the challenge for MIM 7, making sense of a large, complex set of existing authoritative standards so that cities can know which are the ones they need to achieve the things that they want to do. MIM 4 is about interoperability between different initiatives. So MIM 4 is looking at personal data management, how a citizen can be in control of the data about themselves and make sure that that data can be shared in appropriate ways for the benefit of the citizen, so that the citizen knows what data is held by whom, it's managed transparently, and the citizen's in control. Now, the challenge we got with that is that there are many initiatives out there. We've got two major networks, if you like, My Data and Solid, which are attempting to deal with this issue. There are a lot of other initiatives around, and a few of them are mentioned here. And also we need to take into account citizen cards, European Digital Identity Framework, where what's happening is citizens are being provided with a digital wallet or a smart card or something that will enable them to access services without needing to share lots of individual personal data, but just because the attributes that are stored about them on the wallet or the smart card will enable them to be able to access those things. So there's many initiatives out there. And within that, there are two main ways of doing it. With one approach, it's about how can you set up a data pod or something that belongs to me, that stores all of the data related to me. And with the other approach, it's about how can permissions be, easy permission channels be set up where it's easy for me to provide permissions about how my data is used while that data continues to be stored with a number of different agencies. So there's different approaches, technical solutions, and even some of those technical solutions within, say, My Data are not necessarily fully interoperable with each other. So with MIM 4, what we're trying to do is to recognize that there are a variety of different ways of doing it. And so what we are attempting to do here is to help support the way the market can develop to become more consistent, more interoperable, by providing some key technical specifications that will help bring a kind of a consistent clarity about what's needed and help cities work out which of the different options are available to them will be best suited to their needs, while at the same time looking at where we could bring interoperability at some level at least between all of these different options to help start to build a consistent market out of what at the moment is quite fragmented. And then the final thing we're working on, MIM 5, which is about fair and transparent artificial intelligence. This is responding to the strong policy drive from the European Commission and around the world to ensure that artificial intelligence is used in a fair and transparent way. It's building on work from Amsterdam, Helsinki, a number of other places as well. Some good checklists from around the world where we find some excellent examples of good practice. And what we're trying to do here is to work out where a MIM can help bring all of those things into the local data ecosystem and providing the kind of guidance and tools that are needed. And the question is, it's obviously a bigger challenge here because in the other two examples, there's already technical solutions and it's about making sense of those technical solutions. Whereas with MIM 5, what we're having to do is to say, here's what's needed to be achieved. What are the relevant technical things that we can describe and help cities put in place that will allow them to achieve it? So it's a complicated challenge we've got, trying to work out how we develop these MIMs. We've got 4 more we've already listed, how we're going to handle those, how can we make sure that they all fit together in a nice whole to deliver what cities need, and recognizing that this isn't just a nice, interesting intellectual exercise. recognizing that we have great privilege here. The MIMs can make a big difference. If we can help the many cities and communities around the world that don't have resources and the ability to be the pioneers out there, but the ones that are still so important and so concerned about making sure their citizens can have the best quality of life, if we can help them to move forward easily and well into the opportunities that smart technology brings, will impact millions and millions of people's lives. This is really important. And not only that, but if we do this well, it's opening up profitable markets and supporting new industries and generating income and all sorts of other great things for the world. So, really important, very important we get it right. We can't do it on our own. We need to work together, and we need the best thinking of all of us to help get this right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael, and you can hear the audience clapping for this concise overview. Well, it's daunting, and there was actually some very nice questions in the Q&A. Please keep the conversation going there. We'll get back to this. We'll now hand over to Magnus and so on to give a short intervention. Then Piotr will break for a little bit of Q&A. But I mean, there's so many questions, of course. One thing is, how do we get everything to fit together, and what the heck is minimal? So thank you so much, Magnus, for being here, and not just being here at the session, but also leaning into the OASC efforts from the Swedish side, because you represent the Swedish municipalities and regions, and OASC Sweden also here. So welcome to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Exciting to hear all the things you are describing, Michael, and interesting to follow the discussions. I here represent the Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions. What we have done there is that we have created something that we call the 10 principles for IoT systems. That is a guidance for purchasing or achieving IoT systems, which are in some sense a part of the smart city. To those principles, we have approximately 40 descriptive requirements that can be used to evaluate how well the principles are fulfilled. And in this sense, we have created something that we believe can be used for evaluation of tender, that is on the principle level, so that a municipality or a region can use this to evaluate tender from several providers and find out what solution would be best fitting for their purposes. The 10 principles are I'm not going to read all of them, as I obviously have only 5 minutes for this, are based on a lot of background information. We rely on the EIF principles, on SARF, on fundamental IoT functions. We look into interoperability and interchangeability of modules. We have used the ENISA baseline security recommendation for IoT, and we have looked into the OASC MIMs for our 10th principle on how data and information and services are available to applications, and also on the open data and PSI directive. A requirement somehow contributes to fulfill a principle, and in that sense a solution can be evaluated. In the background for the 10 principles and those 40 requirements, we have used all of this material. The principles do not state that you should use this standard or that standard. It says that more that you should follow the standards. And whether you choose one or the other is not the main issue. The main issue is that you pick one. We have also used the material to look into how does the RefArc cover other standards and how is the coherence between RefArc IoT and other standards. So here is the building blocks of ISO 31441, and when we cover it with the principles from RefArc, we see that most of them are there, but some are not identifiable. The principles and requirements are created by Swedish municipalities and regions for municipalities and regions. It has been a work that has been ongoing for 2 years. I have been working as a coordinator and have had a lot of colleagues from Swedish municipalities and regions that have actually been creating this solution. And we have worked on this in an agile manner, almost 2 years from now. It's kind of funny that, yeah, we have been working on this during the pandemic, so I've never met those people actually, even though they are in Sweden. The Swedish OASC has committed the RefArc material for MIMS Plus consideration, because we believe that this material can contribute to OASC and that we hope that it can improve the MIMS framework. We are in cooperation even with Danish sister organization of SALAR, discussing how we can cooperate on this. When I have been looking into how the material can, or what's the differences and similarities between the two materials, the MIMS and RefArc IoT, I see that MIMS states the minimal interoperability, whereas RefArc states the golden unreachable target. And that is a kind of a fundamental difference. And it's worth mentioning that I will be working together with Michael and others in OASC on how we can get those things together. One of the thoughts that I've had so far is that it might be a way of restructuring the MIMS according to the architectural framework TUGAF, where we would use principles that relate to the goals. We look at architectural building blocks and solution building blocks as a way of breaking down those things. But that is only thoughts for the moment. If anybody is interested in looking at the RefArc IoT material, it can be found publicly in Swedish though on this link. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Magnus, not only for being here and for leaning in, but also for inviting to some shared thoughts, because of course it's not really practical if Sweden does one thing, Denmark does another thing, the Flemish guys do. I mean, it's becoming, you know, another cacophony. So how can we join forces? And that's of course what's really important now. And we're very happy to offer, you know, a couple of fora where these discussions can be shared. Piotr, you're also part of the conversation here, so very much from the geospatial side. You represent Open Geospatial, so I invite you to also take the floor here and maybe share a few thoughts on where things could go. Let me see, do you hear us? There you are, now we see you. And yeah, perhaps we can also hear you. Fantastic. Maybe just a short word about yourself, and then, you know, why you're here, what you're seeing. You have worked, I mean, I was going to say a lifetime, but OGC, the Open Geospatial Consortium, has really been trying to do these things with the focus on the geospatial. And there's this interesting characteristic about local communities. They all take place. They're all somewhere. So there's a clear link to what you have been doing. So thanks for being here, and please share a few thoughts.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't manage to prepare that nice presentation. So yeah, a few words about myself, and then I will switch to some slides if I manage to do that. I'm in the OGC, working as a staff member, which means that I'm a small part of the OGC. That is the membership-based organization where the members are actually working on the geospatial standards, and the members actually are from a number of organizations, including the government organization from Europe and the US, including research and businesses. And yeah, the history of the OGC is much related to the wide approach aiming at the either the Earth observation or the city representations, focusing on these 3D representations of the cities. So on one hand, the geoportals that you meet in the internet are, in most, I would say, not saying about persons, but in most based on the OGC standards like WMSs or WFSs. And on the other hand, they are simple. They are easy to integrate with the accessible software to put it on the portals. Then you have background in the software back layers of this stack, developed on the open software geo-related initiatives. And then we are working also on this 3D modeling in different aspects. So you can have, Michael mentioned several of those, that you have plenty of the standards that are, plenty of the standards. And if you can see my screen, then you will see that, yeah, these are only the OGC standards. And these are not the standards itself. These are the blocks. So for example, in the OGC API, you can have several of those. They are already supported, and they are just a new approach to the well-known WXSs that I mentioned. On the other hand, you have different abstraction layers, which means our standards are much implemented with liaison with ISO, and some of them are even shared. So recently released O&M standards is actually the joint venture of the OGC and ISO, and based on the O&M we have these different observation related things, including the Earth observation profile of the standards. And yeah, the situation is even more complicated, because if you want to implement the standards that's tailored and suits your needs, you can naturally use the default configuration, but you can also try to fit it. And it applies to the CTGML, CTJSON, recent child of the OGC, CTJSON, and you can expand it, which means you can easily add the context information. For example, if you want to link it to the context from the MIM1 or whatever, and then it's cross-related, which means you can implement also the semantics on the that are derived from the external models into the OGC representation, and vice versa. So actually you can do it at least two ways. You can include the OGC representation of the geospatial data in the external models, like let's say FIWARE software, if it would extend to that level. And on the other hand, you can easily refer to this context information that is stored already on the external servers. And yeah, behind that, as mentioned, there's bunch of the software solutions that are supporting that. We are not producing much of the software on the OGC side because we don't want to compete with the members, and we are also working in the number of the projects that are not only the research ones. I guess I should be able to switch to the new slide. Yeah. Yeah, and we are working in this bicycle. So we have the standardization process on one hand, in the innovation cycle on the other. And actually the OASC work, which we are included in, is more related to the standardization currently, at least, because we don't have actually the project set up that's officially started on the OGC side, either though we are somehow working with the projects as well to verify the needs. So the projects that we are running, there are usually multi-year or annual projects that are focused on the interoperability naturally, and especially in this geospatial interoperability, including the support of the European projects. Mostly European part of the team is working on the horizon projects, including the relation between geospatial representation that we provide in OGC and, for example, beams. So you can see there that it's easily to link those models, and actually you can convert from the model to model. And we are, for example, starting the project that will prove the solutions that you can digitalize the process of permits based on the BIM modeling, and then the OGC representation of that with the verification and quality assurance tools. Also with the context, because in the BIM you have plenty of the code lists and things that you'd like to not lose and use, and then this outcome of the project usually goes to the DWICs or SWICs, so domain working groups and standard working groups that are adopting those in the standards, or proposing the profile, or changing their standards in the new editions. And yeah, the digital twins are naturally in our interest. We are not providing, the complete solution for the digital twins. We are focused on these geospatial things, but naturally we understand that the need of the contextualization, and that's why the recent JSON things usually consider that in the scope of the proposition. And we are also aiming at the global things that are not only related to the cities, but influence the cities much. So 3D modeling, the disaster management, this is something that goes beyond the geospatial naturally, because when you consider the full chain of the disaster management, you have plenty of the players, and you want to have this interoperability across that process. You can observe that in this in the disaster pilots that are currently the second or the third edition that develops this solution. Currently it's American focused mostly, but European partners are also working on that. And yeah, recent metaverse buzz is also in our interest, because we are naturally representing this 3D space that allows for the modeling, for the modeling, but also for the entertainment and whatever you would like to imagine. And
Piotr, I think we maybe need to just leave a little bit more space for later, if you don't mind, but maybe just
sure. Just okay, this is the first, and let's go to the other. Yeah, we like that one. This is from it presented was on the Inspires, and once again we support this. We want to go with our members and the partners that are even beyond the membership, and want to go together to build that future solutions of the geospatial related information. So yeah, I'm open for the question if you would like to.
Thank you so much. I mean, it is a vast domain we're trying to cover here. May I actually ask now all the panelists to switch on your camera, and maybe you can stop sharing the screen, Piotr, because then we can just at least take a group photo while we're all here. And then I will ask you, Magnus, maybe just to reflect on, so who's going to own all of this, even the data models, you know, that's intellectual property. Is that something that you from the side of the cities are thinking about?
Thank you.
Are you with us, Magnus, here still? Well, I think actually not. Then it's not so easy to answer. But maybe Piotr, the very short version from your side. So how do you see the ownership here? Because it very quickly becomes, you know, an issue. Open and license free, great. But can we do that in 30 seconds?
Yeah, you can use the OGC standards, can be used as you wish. So they are open, and you can, based on that, you can extend that. You can implement, you can profile that, which means you can change the standards. Naturally, it will be not OGC standards, but you can say this is based on the OGC standard. This is the extension, or you can embed the standards in your application. And yeah, you're free to do that.
Thank you for that. That was, I think, less than 30 seconds. And thanks also for putting the standardization versus innovation cycle, you know, so prominently there, because of course, this is what standardization has been battling since the beginning of, well, standardization, probably of civilization, you know, train tracks and, you know, sizes of doors and stuff like that. Okay, thank you so much. So that was the first batch, if you will, and that was a little bit longer because some people had a little bit more time in the beginning. So I'd like to give the floor now to you, Paulo, and the view. I mean, you are from Porto, clearly. Also, you're vice chair of OASC. I mean, again, could you reflect on why are you here? I mean, why not just leave this to the market? I mean, it's fine. You just go and buy what you want. The problem solved, right?
Well, first of all, Martin, thank you very much for inviting me to jump in and to participate in this session. But before going directly to your question, I just would like to say that we have started, and I enjoyed very well the way you lay down all these sessions this morning, especially because we have this mix of the wow effect. And then, well, sit and wait, because we are not yet that. There's still yet a bumpy road ahead. We have this great presentation by Roland and some of our colleagues, in which we were able to see how amazing the future can be. How digital twins will help us not only to visualize our city, but at the same time to play with it, to modulate the future scenarios in a very graphical way. We were able to see the effect of closing a bridge in the quality of the air, in the way mobility is all across the city. Well, we were able to see how by crossing artificial intelligence, these realistic 3D models and the data collected by the IoT infrastructure, we were able to see that finally we can kind of predict the future, but not only predict the future, but at the same time do it in a very immersive new digital world, something that Mike Zuckerberg is very eager to start selling to us. But the truth is that we still have a very, very bumpy road ahead. We still have a lot of challenges, as we are seeing in the discussion that we are having now, and as we have seen as well in the discussion that we have in the first session related with digital markets, the ways that, well, in order to be able to reach that bright future, there's still a lot of challenges to tackle, and the only way that we can do it is by working together, or obviously in the context that is driven by cities, is driven by demand. But at the same time, we really need to be very aligned, completely aligned with the market, and the way the market can obviously, in the end of the day, help us to deploy all these solutions. As we have seen today, there are a lot of cities preparing tenders for going to the market, searching for solutions, but this will only work if we are developing all this effort in an open way, and that's why the work that we are doing at OASC, that's why the work that we are doing, especially in the context of the MIMs, but at the same time in the context of the European data spaces, can have an important role here, because it will help us to work as a catalyst for fostering the development of the market itself. Okay, especially it will allow us, and that's one of the things that as a city representative, I would say, as CEO of Porto Digital, we have to deal with the market in the way that we have to make the market realize that by we can only work on an open canvas. Otherwise, it will not be easy for us to have a very, I would say, competitive or innovative solutions for all the tenders that we are open nowadays. So it's not a matter if we are working on by trying to do it everything by ourselves. Is a matter of working in partnership with the market, and at the same time creating the tools, I would say, to work as a catalyst to be able to help the market to move forward, because without a very, I would say, active competitive market, cities will not be able to tackle all the challenges by themselves, obviously, and you know that, and you know the work that we are doing at Porto Digital, but not only at Porto Digital. We can obviously develop or try to follow the open source market, but even though we still need to have commercial partners to support us to deliver these solutions developed on top of open source, which obviously is a way that, for instance, our colleagues from FIWARE are following, and they are doing an amazing job by following that path. So very briefly, and because we still have other colleagues to share their views, and we are very eager to hear from there as well. Very briefly, what I believe can be key here is by deep diving on more concrete specifications, both on the MIM sides and at the same time on the European data spaces, because I think it's important also to highlight what Andreas almost in the previous session I've said in the beginning of the morning, I just have said on the view that the European Commission has for these European data spaces, this secure environment that allows a very smooth data sharing, which in the end will be key for all the things that we have been seeing, especially in the session regarding the digital twins for cities. Okay.
Thank you so much, Paulo. I mean, so let's perhaps come back to this when we heard a little bit more. Like we said before, we have the Get Practical sessions right after this. So I think what we can also have now, and even in program today, this dialogue between where are we now? Okay, here's the pie in the sky. What can we buy today? Where are we going together? And as Piotr said, well, we can go far if we go together. So thanks also for being here, and well, for being with us in the opening tomorrow and throughout the session here. And thanks for all your support, Paulo, in general and specifically here as well. Okay, so we give the floor to you, Juanjo. You have been mentioned several times. I mean, the FIWARE initiative has been around the block, both, you know, I think following the entire hype cycle and now delivering some solid things. So thanks for being here, and also for sharing your views on what we have, and especially what we should be working on in the coming time. The floor is yours.
No, actually from Finland. I was just finishing my Corona quarantine, so I'm finally free again.
Okay, but good, and thanks for being here. Please tell us, why are you here? You've been working so much, not just with Helsinki and others on the personal data, but I mean, you came from the built environment as a company, and now you're doing personal data now.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
So actually, happy to be here first of all, and the company what I'm representing, Vastuu Group, we are all about ecosystem and collaboration and working together with private and public. Though we are a privately held company, but the whole business is about working with others. So the reason why I'm here and why Vastuu Group is here, that we want to accelerate these ecosystems that enable better services for people, which enable better services for companies, better services for cities. And data is an essential part of that. And that's why MIM and MIMs are essential for our work. But the collaboration and ecosystems are the key building blocks. And even though we are coming from built environment, we have to remember that people are actually building our environment. So we have already 500,000 people, workers who are working in the built environment. So we need to remember that built environment is built by people. So let's share the screen. This should work. And here, all right. So can you see the screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm taking a brief introduction to the topic, starting from general approach and then showing what we have been doing with Helsinki quickly. Sorry, here. So let's start from the trust. This is coming from my dear hobby, climbing in the mountains, Italian Dolomites, and how this is related to all what we do. It's all about trust. And trust is not just about safety gear in climbing. It's about how you use it. But the safety gear and the knowledge how you use it is not enough, but it's about respecting the environment where you use it and being a guide who can apply the right gear in a right spot in a right time. And then people can trust you to get to the top and back. And this is a photo where I'm taking a friend of mine to the Italian Dolomites to a classic road and getting her safely back. So when we get to the data is about trust, and the trust, we have different building blocks. We have legal, we have technology, and then we have the use cases for the people, the adaptation to the environment. And we need to remember that when we start to work on any of these topics which MIMs are related to. I'm borrowing these words from the International Data Spaces Associations, and this is showing the fundamental approach we are having at Vastuu Group. So people and organizations are acting in multiple ecosystems. They are not just limiting their sharing of their data to one single entity, but they're acting in this ecosystem sharing with multiple parties. So there is no space for silos, and thus we need to enable the flow in between the silos to make the life of the people, the residents, better. So we need the bridges, we need the connectors, we need the parties who build the bridges in between the silos and sometimes break the silos. So convergence for data. This is something that we need to do together, and we need to have a common view of the showstoppers and need to figure out that how to get around those. When we have been working with Helsinki, we both have a good will and what we want to achieve, and we have ideas about services, and we get support from the Open as Smart Cities, and we come up ideas for MIMs. But then all of a sudden we face showstoppers, which may be legal, sometimes technology, but mostly legal, or then there might be some processes or city units or something like that, which are slowing it down. So the change is that we need to find those and we need to find answers so that all the parties are happy. Then we need to decide what is the framework. The framework is not just technology, but it's about the process and understanding the parties who are stakeholders in these services for the residents we are creating. And then we need to understand that there are different roles. Some of the parties are just providing data. Some of these are private companies. Some of these parties we are dealing with are actually governmental parties. And then some may be companies owned by the city and then proprietary owned companies. So understanding this kind of clustered scene and view. This is about cities. Cities are not just single units, but it's a collection of collaboration between different parties. So be open-minded. We need to challenge the current status quo, public versus private. There is no public versus private. Cities are collections of units, which are some of those are public, some of those are private companies, and some of those are city-owned private companies, some of those are privately held private companies. And then there is government. Cities and government are not the same. So we need to challenge this status quo and establish an environment for better collaboration and see that with this collaboration, this is needed to make the better services possible for the citizens. And that the competition here is also a vital part, that when people and companies are acting together, we need to agree that sometimes we compete, but still we can work in the same ecosystem. We can work together to achieve the similar goals, and we can prosper together, even though we are competing. And then one vital part here, what I have been emphasizing, is the industrial data versus personal data. Like Vastuu Group, we have industrial data, but we have 500,000 people who are building the environment, and we need the data of those people, the educational level of those people, what kind of work they can do. It's an industrial data about people. And thus, I don't see that there is a clear separation of an industrial data or personal data or city data. There is just data. And in many cases, the data is related to people or residents. So these are the background principles to get practical what we have done together with Helsinki. We have initiated the MIM4 draft to enable certain proactive services for residents in the Helsinki region. One is this subsidized daycare, where we have stakeholders, State of Finland, actually tax authority, City of Helsinki, and then the resident, the family, mother and father, or just a mother or father, who have an income. And in Finland, based on their income level, they may get subsidized daycare. Well, to apply that, it's a difficult process. They have to fill the papers. There are a lot of people involved from the city side. That can be automated with just a simple idea. If we get a consent from the parents to check their income from the tax authority, City of Helsinki can automatically give the subsidized daycare fees if the family has a right for that. So that is a simple example from a normal everyday life situation where we have a lot of stakeholders, but where we need some kind of interoperability. And this is just showing what happens. So basically, we have a My Data operator, Vastuu Group is actually there. We have a City of Helsinki, the blue one, the unit that is taking care of the subsidized daycare fees, the parents giving the consent through the operator to Helsinki, and then Helsinki getting the information from the Finnish tax authority to make an automated decision about subsidized daycare. And this is already showing that we are working in a complex environment. It's not just public and private, it's a state, city, private, and then people, human-centric approach. So to get to the MIM level, we started with the idea that we need to have something that is on a bottom level that we have to simplify. We cannot fulfill all the different levels and the standardization, but we started from the simple thing. We have data sources, and to enable the data flow, we need data sockets, like we have electricity sockets. And that is technology. And with the City of Helsinki, we extended this idea a little bit further. Of course, when you are accessing data from a data socket, you need an agreement. And this agreement was the other half of the idea we generated together with Helsinki. And this has been acting as a baseline for the MIM4 work we started together with the OASC. So we combined the legal and the tech in the Helsinki case. And this is the typical way how it works. We are not just living in a silo of technology or silo of legal. We are combining the human-centric cases with the legal and tech and having an ethical angle into all of that. Well, this leads us into the reality where...
Mika, just maybe we can just, we're running a little bit
this
late
is the final slide, by the way.
Oh, perfect, perfect.
So no worries. So this is leading to the reality where different cities may have different technologies, but then we simplify the data access so that the different technologies can empower the data needs from the common standardized connector. And this connector could be defined under the MIM4, for example. So starting from one angle, and then we can extend this further and further. And this kind of approach enables these subsidized daycare or similar nice services for residents. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mika, and sorry for it's just, I mean, you should also mention that you have like in 1 hour and 3/4.
Yeah.
You have a session where we can go into more detail with the particularities here. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I mean, so we're really, it's a funnel here. We're getting more and more concrete, and we're seeing then, yeah, MIMs are great, but then there is the details. So how much can actually be achieved with these general building blocks? There was a lively discussion in the Q&A. So maybe, Juanjo, that's also a good cue for you to step in now. I hope, yeah, now the screen sharing works. Yeah, we have 15 minutes, so it should be fine for our 2 last speakers, and we can wrap up perhaps with some of the questions. So thank you, Mika, and over to you, Juanjo, and maybe just situate what is FIWARE and the foundation, because I mean, well, it's an NGO in that sense, but representing technology providers mostly, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Martin, and thank you to the organization for inviting me to give this presentation. Well, FIWARE is an open source initiative, and I would say in connection to MIMs, one of our missions is that of making MIMs happen. And we have been focused in several of the MIMs, and actually the presentation I developed and I was planning to give was focus on some of the MIMs, particularly MIMs 1, 2, and 3, and try to share with you some thoughts looking forward, and a bit some reflections of what we have achieved so far. These are MIMs which any powered by FIWARE architecture is strongly based. And that is one of the reasons why many cities today, the last time we count, then there were close to 200 cities are using FIWARE, because really they really are looking for these standards for interoperability. MIM1, NGSI LD, I think it's something we from Europe have to feel proud about. It has been there because of, I think, in part the insistence of the European Commission, who brought it already as an important element of the rolling plan for ICT standardization starting in 2016. But for instance, last year, and this is something that many people know, has been adopted by the Bureau of Indian Standards as the basis for enabling data exchange across Indian cities, and how Indian city should export real-time data. We are talking about a technology that is available and is evolving based on driven by implementation approach. So we are continuously analyzing the feedback from developers, and who can now take advantage that exists multiple implementations of this standard, and we are evolving it to bring elements that are given more relevance. What I think as a last message to convey regarding this MIM is that it has proven to be a good basis for supporting access to digital twin data, so as a standard digital twin API. Regarding data models, some things have already been said. The Smart Data Models Initiative has emerged as a fast-growing community that is making that happen. We have more than 650 data models, 70 organizations contributing more than 100 individuals, and endorsed by organizations, not just as IUDX, which is this organization in India promoting the adoption of NGSILD, and OASC. So definitely a second message to convey is contribute to a smart data model initiative, because this will be the way we will ensure a healthy development of MIM2. MIM3, the marketplace, there is already a working implementation of the marketplace services based on PM4 APIs available in FIWARE that was piloted in the past in the synchronicity project, but has been evolving to incorporate elements enabling the integration with distributed identity and access management frameworks. And that is key for supporting data spaces and is being used in projects today like I4Trust and so on. So third message to convey, incorporate MIM3 as basis for your data space marketplace services. Actually, a message to convey is that the combination of these MIMs becomes essential elements for data spaces and that support exchange of digital twin data, which is elements that have been tackled along the different sessions today. So summary and last slide, message I would like to forward in connection to MIMs. First of all, I think it's time to promote NGS-ILD as a standard for digital twin APIs, access to digital twin data. Of course, there might be other standards complementing this for visualizations and stuff like that, but for what it means, access to data, it is enough. Contribute to Smart Data Models initiative, because it will be the way to make MIM2 growth in terms of adoption, and start creating data spaces for based on marketplace services like MIM3. Last point, and just a question for the debate, is shouldn't we address the definition of a MIM coping with identity and authorization management? That is there for the debate.
Thank you so much, Juanjo. It was, brilliant. It was on time, and it was really, to no surprise, tracing very, very finely where we have been and where we are. And I think even in the last point, we have been discussing from the beginning. What about IDM? Identity management. Do we just leave that to OAuth and EIDAS and that's fine, or do we have something that's even more basic? Great. That's for a conversation for the Tech Council. If you ask OASC, if you ask Europe, certainly the tech subgroup in Living EU. So fantastic. Thanks for this invitation to discuss further. May I invite you, Jan-Joost, to take the floor. You have a slot a little bit later to get practical.
That slot will be filled by Albert, if I'm not mistaken, Martin. But
okay,
I will try and keep it
you
short.
In the sense of Atos, but please, right. Thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you. I will share my screen and go into presentation mode. Just a second. There we go. So my name, Jan-Joost van Kan. You can see my screen in presentation mode.
I don't see the screen yet, at least. So can you do anything, Jan-Joost, to share or reshare or something?
I will try to share again. There you go.
Much better.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's so my name. Thank you.
I am Jan-Joost van Kan. I'm a smart society social architect in Atos, because indeed I agree with Roland van der Heijden, my fellow Dutchman, that the overall technology is only 25% of the solution, and all the rest means that we need to have a very good conversation and discussion between people. And I will try and tackle all the MIMs in the remaining 5 minutes. So sit tight, it's going to be a rough ride. I believe, just a second, because, okay, so that's better. I believe we need to try and define MIMs on a number of levels. And that's not only on the technology or interoperability level, but also and mainly on the concept level and on the functional requirement level. We need to have that discussion and to converge on those 3 levels to provide a shared base for interaction, to maximize our functional benefits, to prevent vendor lock-in, and to put functionality first and to remain technology neutral. That's not only my belief, but also the belief of Atos, because we like to have a level playing field in ecosystems. Now, the 10 MIMs you see here have already been published on Living in EU as well. And we are mainly discussing the first 6 here today. And I believe actually that we need to start to have a discussion on the final 3, and including the security one that Juanjo just alluded to. So going back to something that even Tanguy already coined, which is the so-called wicked problems, more urbanization leads to more difficult problems in our urban space, also called inverted pendulums, or trying to keep all the plates spinning everywhere. And every solution actually leads to new problems. Now, it is our firm belief that we need digital twins of cities, as so-called engines of stabilities, to test scenarios virtually that would be way too costly to test in real life. And actually, there is a MIM already for that, and that's the resource impact assessment. Because if you check out the mims.oascities.org, you will see that the MIM 10 is interoperability capabilities related to management and assessment of scarcity and resources related to people, nature, and investment. So it's already there. We just need to start working on it. Up until recently, I had trouble to actually come up with a proper definition of a digital twin. So I looked it up at the Digital Twin Consortium. It's a US-based initiative, but there are very clear interactions with GaiaX in that respect. It is about accelerating holistic understanding to make optimal decision-making and effective action, to provide a real-time and historical data representing past, present, and simulated predicted futures. And that's where the rub is. Now, until recently, I also had trouble explaining what a wicked problem is, and then we had COVID, so nowadays it's easy. What is the best way to actually take any measurement, to take any measure and dampen the pandemic? This is the causal loop diagram. Please tell me, what do I need to do? And that's not simple, because every measure that you take actually will have an impact on the future. Meaning that you cannot go back to your saved game to try again. And if we blow up our city, then there's not really a good way to go back. So digital twins, important to simulate futures and try and find the best possible future that we would like to move into. Now, then, of course, the next question becomes, and which parties need to be part of that overall process to move towards that perfect future? As was explained in the nice overview of the wicked problems, it's always about multi-stakeholders. They don't always have the same interests. They have different ways of exchanging value. So we need to have a discussion on multi-stakeholder partnerships as part of the Quintuple Innovation Helix framework, because that's the other side of the coin, that within our Quintuple Helix framework, as an engine of change to move from one stable situation to the next without disrupting the whole system, without disrupting our whole city, we need to have ecosystem indicators. And we already have a MIM for that. We just need to start working on it. So taking those two as the dot on the horizon, then we need to start thinking, okay, and how are the other MIMs going to support us in actually reaching that end goal? And there we have 3 tracks that need to converge to fuel the flywheel of solving wicked problems in a sustainable manner. First of all, it's all about data processing. And we have worked a lot on that, from measurement to publishing. We have our data models, the MIM2. We can put that in context, so we actually know what is the latest and greatest measure we've already taken, and is it still relevant for the situation we're in? And we have ways in place that, or actually we have a lot of it already in place. We're still getting the final T's crossed and I's dotted. And that's about the contracts. How can we actually make provide a good way to make this ecosystem work? And those 3 you need to implement first and foremost as a city to improve the reusability of data in your local ecosystem. If you don't have that, then you will just run from proof of concept to proof of concept. And I believe, Martin, that the OASC was actually started because we want to get rid of that. So in that sense, MIMS is one of the very nice children that were born out of the OASC. To move from the POCs, technology readiness level 5, to the level of maturity of introduction in the wild, technology readiness level 7. Can we actually introduce technology in our cities without, again, blowing them up? Now, then, of course, we need to have security, like Juanjo said. We need to have that in place, and we may even need to have that in place before we introduce personal data in cities, because security is a necessary requirement or a necessary condition for privacy. That is something that ENISA already published in the 2015 paper, Privacy by Design in Big Data, that predates the General Data Protection Regulation for a very good reason, because if you don't have that in place, and GDPR will actually bite you in the behind. Now, I said we need to have 3 tracks to converge. The first one was, of course, all about the data. The second one is about visualization. And I put the geospatial information here and not in the data part, because, well, it's kind of a folly to have only geospatial data, but not have it visualized. So that supports your clear visual feedback of process data in 3D and 4D as a key source of details behind MIM 10 and 8. But I believe there's a MIM missing here, and that's the more easy ways to actually communicate data. And both of them we need to have in order to have those engines of change running. The third track, and I'm almost done, Martin, is about data analytics. That's about MIM 9 that we are not working on yet, and MIM 5 that we are already working on. So I believe MIM 5 and 4 currently being worked on is great, because that will build the trust that we need in our engine of stability and our engine of change. But we need to start working on the other MIMs as well. And I would very much like to invite everyone to step up to the plate, tell us what you're working on, and tell us how we can bring that into our overall framework, because we need that in order to keep our cities livable and to build those digital twins that we can address stuff like climate change, like indeed our health, but also to ensure improving the overall living environment that we are part of. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Jan-Joost. Maybe I can invite all the panelists to open your video now. Now we have some very, very concrete things there on the table. I mean, from your side and from several of the others. I mean, we started with Magnus and the very concrete Swedish proposals to bring some things in, and actually much of what they've done is around security and that type of stuff, and all the way down, and both Juanjo, Mika, and you, Jan-Joost, deliver some very, very concrete things that we could be working on. So first of all, that's a very, very good situation, I think. First of all, confirming. So we heard from Olavi, now the MIMs are, well, in the programs, they're also in the tenders, as we heard from several sides in the earlier sessions. So what's next? So could I invite now here, I know we're a little bit over time, but we also have a break, so perhaps it would be fine actually to give a round of reflections. Could we, in a way, start from, I was going to say the top, but with you, Paulo, and then take Mika, Juanjo, Jan-Joost, and then you, Michael, and then you, Olavi. Just a final reflection on what we have on the table. We have stuff we've done.
Yeah, very briefly, and what I like to highlight is that what we have seen here and what we have seen during the morning is precisely this alignment that I think that is now happening between the demand sides, the cities' needs, and the cities, the way cities are seeing well, the future, and at the same time, the supply side, the way companies are really aligned in this concept on trying to figure out an approach for kind of strip down what is complex and to focus on this concept of the MIMs. And that's why I think, well, as a city representative and at the same time as the co-chair of OASC, which I believe is really a very positive message for everyone to keep continuing this work, the work that we are doing, because I think that we are seeing support both from the city sides and at the same time from the industry. So, sorry, Martin, I decided to jump in because we lost it for a short period of time.
Well, you're the vice, so if I fall over, it's you. So
Okay.
It works.
Okay,
so no, that's very good. So just, I mean, maybe we can go like the reverse and end up with you, Michael and Olavi. So do you want Mika to just reflect, you know, we need some input now for Paulo and for the cities to decide, because we have a General Assembly coming up, and that's also prioritizing the work from the cities side. And we saw how, you know, not just the companies need to lean in, but the cities also need to lean in.
But Martin, if you allow me, I think that you didn't hear what I've just said. I was just kind of giving this positive message that on the city side, we are seeing the light in the end of this tunnel, because we are seeing that there's an alignment between the needs, this mechanism that we are trying to implement to keep it simple, and at the same time, the way the industry is also moving forward. Obviously, we have the example of two great companies here, but at the same time, we have the great work that OASC, the FIWARE is doing, which obviously represents a broad set of companies.
Yeah, I think I got that, but maybe just to allow, you know, Mika, Juanjo, and Jan-Joost, and then Michael as the one who receives, and then Olavi in the beginning. Just very quick.
Okay, thank
Mika.
you. So first of all, it's a pleasure to see that such a varying group of companies, organizations, decision makers are participating here, because that is needed. And then the MIM approach, where the minimum is on the focus, and I want to emphasize the minimum, because at the end, if we take all the MIMs, it's a huge collection of things. And I think that now, when we see the big picture and we see that what all is possible, the question is that how we can focus first on the minimum and the very bare bone minimum, so that we can get something concrete running and then building on top of that. So out of all these presentations and the bigger picture, what I'm seeing here, all these parties who are here, I hope that all these parties can break the silos and the walls, and then everyone should focus first on the minimum, so we can get concrete and get something real, and then grow a little bit further. So I'm emphasizing the minimum of a minimum.
Okay, so that's one for you, Michael.
Yeah.
Juanjo.
Yeah, well, actually, perhaps my message is we have to persist, because sometimes, people tend to believe, okay, we have already achieved this, let's move to the next step. We have to really consolidate what we have. And I think now with programs like Digital Europe, like some other programs around the concept of digital twins, we have to make sure that the MIMs get there as the basis, and that would be in a way the way to make sure that what we have defined and many cities have already adopted get consolidated.
Thank you. Jan-Joost?
Well, I tend to agree with Mika and Juanjo here. We need to focus on the minimum of the minimum, and we need to persist. And to that end, Michael and I have already had discussions previously that we should aim for, I believe, to publish a MIM with a year marker, meaning that we have a MIM 2022, a MIM 2023 for each of the 10. And the reason why I'm proposing that is because currently, for example, we are working on Green Move. There is a big Green Move program within the EU. It means that there will be input from that Green Move for MIM 10 and MIM 8, meaning that trickles down to all the other MIMs. They build on top of each other, they are interconnected, but there is no free ride saying, okay, we introduce something in any of the 10 MIMs, but it will not trickle down or work upwards to the other ones. We always need to ensure that they are consistent. And that also means that going forward, we need to cut stuff out of the older MIMs because we have a new way of working in 10 years' time. They will not be static.
Versioning, yeah, so we need to do that for sure. Michael, and then Michael, just for a brief, very brief, and then Olavi also for a very brief reflection.
Yes, so I think this has shown me again how lucky we are in OASC to have the opportunity of having cities, industry, people working like FIWARE on developing a good practice, getting practitioners learning from each other and sharing and building on that. And with the Commission, not just because it's Europe, because we're a global organization, but in terms of the fact that the Commission has a kind of a bigger, wider perspective on this and is trying to not just have individual cities doing stuff or companies, but looking at the big picture. And we've got all of that in OASC. This is a unique opportunity to build something great. And I guess the other side of that is we must do it. And that there's the persistence kind of thing there again. You know, this is a complicated thing. We've got all the things in place. We mustn't lose this opportunity of delivering what cities need, what industry needs to help us all move forward together.
Thank you, Michael. Olavi, some final remarks?
Yeah, thanks. Great presentations, great suggestions. As Juanjo said, it need, you know, what we have and what is being built needs to be consolidated in, for example, the Digital Europe winning proposals, which are happening, well, as we speak, I suppose, by many of you and by many others. So, and by now,